Well planned.
It worked out. Planned. You're funny.
Serendipitous.
Okay, I'm going to go to recording just in case we want to start or something.
Okay.
Do y'all wear headphones or
No.
Do you like to?
Generally
we
not.
Whatever you
can.
want. I'm good either way.
For me, it's.
And what I do
analyze
is
it too much.
You be quiet and you talk. I need to check
Mic
sound.
check 1 2 1 2. Hello, hello.
Yeah,
Say something. Hello, hello, hello.
interesting. I'm not getting much from you.
Do you want me to louder, closer?
A little bit closer, but you don't have to stay there. Try
Can
it
I
again.
lower it just a tad? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oops. Robin Mack is the best.
This was a paid political announcement.
This is a paid political announcement. Robin, we became friends, I think 2010, 11-ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah, around there for sure.
Yeah. That was 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I think we're pretty much balanced right now.
That's a pretty good amount of time.
15 years, man. Mm-hmm. I interviewed my old high school track coach yesterday.
Wow.
30 years ago.
That gives me goosebumps.
I found my journal from high school where we had to take notes after every practice. Yeah, it was really wild.
I think of my coach and I wonder if she's still with us. I wonder if she's still in Houston. I have no idea, but wow, she changed my life. So that's really cool. I can't wait to listen to that.
Having never had a coach,
Never wanted one.
I had this problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anything that I did that might have been called a sport,
Mm-hmm.
I ended up too good at it too quickly.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to have.
I mean, you know, there are shooting coaches. I guess I had a couple people that coached me in shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And then tennis had lots of different people.
Mm-hmm. She's really good swing. Is that right? Really good hit? Really good serve?
Yeah, basically, everybody joked about I used to play tennis and used to be very good.
Mm-hmm.
And for an amateur, let's put it that way, because I used to go up to Nukes and do the tennis camp with the professionals and those sorts of things, which really improves your game. It's called Don't Get Yourself Killed.
Right.
But I was at the point where I could hit 150 mile an hour serve pretty much all day long.
Wow.
And, and people don't expect it because I was pudgy then too.
Wow.
And they'd look and they'd think, no way. And then boom, bang. And they'd be like, wait a minute.
That's impressive.
It's your favorite line. Underestimate me. That'll be fun.
And then at one point in time, paid McEnroe to teach me how to hit an American twist serve, which almost nobody hits. An American twist serve is sort of interesting because you hit it and it starts going this way or that way, whichever way you set it up to. And when it bounces, it goes literally the other way, almost at a right angle. And even pros will be standing there with their racket hanging out the wrong side.
Wow.
or ready for a backhand and it goes behind them. And usually they see it just as it bounces and they just shake their head and start laughing and walk back to the back.
Wow.
But
What's McEnroe like?
Actually really nice. I mean,
Contrary to as advertised?
I mean, he's an actor.
Okay.
I mean, I used to call tennis lines for various tennis tournaments, and those were fun. I think the most fun when I was with SMU, I was assistant president of SMU for a while when I was there. Other than the actual biggest final matches, I would be calling lines for something or other. And I got to call a McEnroe Nastasi match. And Nastasi is crazy. At one point in time, he comes up, and it was a good call I made, but he comes up in my face and he said, and he's doing all this moving around. He said, okay, so the crowd loves me to make a big deal about it. So I'm going to act like I'm calling you all sorts of names and everything else. And it was a good call. We both know that. But I'm not going to say that here or do anything. And it was like he was arguing, and he was doing it perfectly, except those weren't the words.
That's funny.
And I was just sitting there staring at him. And it was like, yeah, it's an act on his part.
Well, it's nice to know where the axe stops and the real
McEnroe
person
on the other
starts.
side was laughing and saying, come on, we're going to play or not play. And it's like, yeah, I get it. This is what people come to see. So got it.
The drama. It's like hockey. They don't go for the game.
Yeah.
They go for the fights.
That's fair.
Right, do your thing.
Apparently he wrote a book that was pretty good recently. I didn't read it.
I haven't read it either.
It's on my kind of maybe to-do list one day, but
Yeah. What else is on your maybe to-do list these days?
Man, the kids eat a ton of time. Do you want me to
Could we get into the podcast, please?
We're already into it.
No, we aren't.
Okay.
We're going to do introductions. See,
All right.
I thought we would just do it at
game
the
on.
end.
the first half we did introductions halfway through or at the end. It's like, no, we need to do introductions.
All right. Let's try the beginning this time.
Okay. Game
All
on.
right. Do you want to lead in?
Sure.
Okay.
Unless you want to do the introduction.
Go ahead.
This is 22 Sides. Thanks for joining us. Today, I'm here with Robin. And
Frost Murphy.
Yes.
that was Frost,
Frost.
like cold frost.
Like Frosty the Snowman.
Okay, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Like the breeze that blew by.
I love it. Yeah, so I'm my...
Put the cool and cool.
That's right. Put the chill into my opponents is what somebody said the other day. I am officially George Frost Murphy the Fourth.
Okay.
And my dad is Frosty. I'm Frost. And my son is Pequeño Frost. He's the fifth.
Okay.
And so anyway,
You're from Texas, aren't
I'm
you?
from Texas. I couldn't.
Only in Texas.
I couldn't let the tradition die with me. We had to keep it going.
Yeah, no, you're like, I'm not the one. I can't
Yeah,
stop it.
right?
Sorry, son. You're definitely a Frost.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, how old's your son?
He is going into third grade. He's 8 years old.
Okay. So any new nicknames for Frost or?
My when my wife is speaking in a harsh tone, he's usually Frost. I'm like, okay, that's not me. That's got to be him.
Okay. The tones, the signals.
Yeah. No,
At least you hope.
I hope that's. But no, he's Pequeño Frost. That was a sort of nickname. So sometimes she just walks around saying, "Pequeño, get down here. Get your shoes on. We gotta go."
That's good. That's good. And you have more than one kid, right?
Yes, my
Okay.
daughter is going into middle school next year. Those awkward middle school years.
And what's her
Get
name?
Excited. Her name's Kate.
Okay, good.
Kate
No,
the
like
Great.
Frostina
I
or
was
something.
worried it was going to be another Frost.
No, Frostina.
Frost.
Kate the
Yeah. Good. Kate the Great. That's good. There's a little bit of break in the tradition.
Yep.
So that's wonderful. Well, you fill your time up with lots of wonderful things beyond your family that also includes your family.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to touch on some of those passions that you have because
Yeah.
I think we're in a perfect time where people are post-pandemic getting out there and saying like, maybe I want to do something new. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I want to find some new passions and explore, but how do I get out there? What do I do? And some of that's fitness, some of that's volunteering, some of that's I just want to meet people and I don't know where to start and I don't want to go back to my go-tos. So when someone asks you what's it like going to a gym, what do you have to say?
Well, I think just breaking a sweat every day helps body, mind, spirit, all of it. You
Yeah.
could be mowing your yard. You could be doing some yoga. You could be running. You could just sit in a steam room. You can do whatever you want. But
Oh, wait a minute. I'm liking the steam room approach.
that's good. That's good. Hey, have you seen
Yeah.
the studies on those? I'm sure you've heard about
They're
them.
pretty good, and you wouldn't believe it with how hot Houston can get. But people are investing in infrared memberships, like sauna memberships,
Yeah.
and I didn't think people would pay for that.
I know.
Pay for the AC, yes. Pay for the saunas.
Well, if you pay for
Wow.
one side, you have to pay for the other side, right?
Yeah, but like you said, there's a lot of good science behind it, and people feel better.
I bought on Amazon, I think it was like $150 or $200, this like zip up tent thing.
Okay.
And it piped in steam, like it was like this boiling like crock pot thing.
We're like the one where your head sticks out.
Well, but I got the one where my head stayed in.
Okay.
And I did it like I put it up in my garage.
Nice.
And especially on the days where I couldn't make it to the gym or whatever, I was injured or bunged up or just
Sure.
couldn't, kind of recovery day.
Sure.
I'd sit in that thing in my garage and listen to a podcast.
Okay, right
and
on.
I loved it. I wore it out. I got to get a new one now. But
Okay, good to know. I recently went through a hand injury myself, and you can daydream all you want about the coulda, shoulda, wouldas about getting into fitness, but if you hadn't done it before the injury, it's kind of hard to do it with one. So
Yes.
keeping the sanity while you're healing is like a big deal that I'm sure you grapple with because
Yes.
let's give a little bit of background about how much you actually give to athleticism. I'm sure you've had more than one injury and more than one victory at this point.
Yeah, so high school, football and track, college, Texas Tech, did track for a year, got into a sport called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That became popular, competed professionally in that, competed professionally in MMA, own and operate a large MMA school here in Houston where we coach a couple thousand athletes a year. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot of injuries over the years. And every time somebody gets injured, I always tell them like, hey, if someone like can't do anything, like their back's messed up, they just can't move. I'm like,
Tough.
hey, just go sit in your shower until you get dizzy. Go sit in your bathtub till you get, don't get dizzy and have a problem. But if you're somebody who exercises on a regular basis, then all of a sudden you can't, like your sanity goes out the window.
Oh my gosh, it's horrible. And, I'll cheerlead people into fitness all day long. Like, you bought the clothes, good for you. You want to go to the class, awesome. You didn't make it, still keep going, But there's another side to that. When you know yourself into a certain level of ability and then you fall out of that, you slide out of that, you get injured out of that, like that could be really painful, not just physically, but psychologically.
Yes.
So it's important to talk about those things too, because I think a lot of people, it's a very lonely time sometimes, especially when you really want to still be back out there.
Yeah, the camaraderie of where, your yoga class or your fitness class or whatever is a real fun part of any type of fitness. And that's what has people keep coming back, usually is a group of people that they like, that they're training with. On the injury vein, my business partner and one of my best friends, Hai Wen, was telling me, we're both in our mid-40s now, and he was like, injuries don't go away, they just move around. You know what I mean? Like, it's your shoulder today, your back tomorrow, Yeah,
it's funny because, like, women call that menopause, and then men are like, it just roams. So, like, it doesn't matter. It's the age. And there's a comedian that says, I hate to tell you this, but when you're 40, you go in and you want the doctor to fix what your ache and pain is, and he's like, nah, it's just that way now.
Yeah.
Take some Advil and move on. It's just that way now. Nothing to fix it? Nope. Not welcome to this part of the chapter.
And the worst part is that if you've been really active and you have to slow down because body just makes you slow down, sometimes that really sucks too.
Well, you've known a lot about that. So as a very accomplished scuba traveling company that you owned, you did a lot of physical fitness that people would not really think about as a physical fitness, but
80 hours a week in the water?
The gym.
Really?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
You put it in the big world gym,
with fins.
Wow.
And so you did world traveling
and traipsing through the jungles.
What part of the world was this?
Usually the Yucatan, sometimes Caribbean islands, sometimes Pacific. Awesome. Any place that had warm water. I didn't do cold water.
Okay.
Me and cold is just not it.
That's cool.
And so what was your company's name?
Discover Scuba.
Yeah. And it was
Discover Scuba and Scuba. I had a whole bunch of different names.
It was pretty known.
Pretty
active.
We were pretty much the best training company in the world. And everyone pretty much knew that. We got sent people from all over the world. And
you didn't just sit back and let people earn for you. You went on the trips. You were there a lot. And in fact, you got some of the most curmudgeon customers. Like, those are your favorite.
Yeah, I always took the bad guys. If it's going to be a problem, it was mine, because I was really good at handling problem people, shall we say.
Really? What's the secret? I need some tips.
It's really simple.
Okay.
Basically, you calm them down, and once they get calmed down, you can actually talk to them.
Okay.
But you also have to know what to expect. For instance, in the water, scuba diving, you sort of need to go underwater. Otherwise, it's not much fun.
Okay.
Sitting on the surface in scuba gear is just not a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, there are lots of people who are scared to death of water.
Yes.
And going underwater. And we used to have people come in the stores all the time that would say, I'm afraid of water, but I want to learn to scuba dive. And it's like, wait, we need to discuss this at some length. It's sort of like, why, if you're afraid of water, are you wanting to go someplace where you're going to be in the water the entire time and under the water?
Yes.
Well, it just didn't look as scary. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be scary, but some people think it is. And, you basically, what you have to do for that is you have to get them to the point where they say they're scared. It's sort of like rock climbing. You can't fix the problems they're having as long as they're just toughing it out. They've got to say, okay, no, I'm scared. This is not it. It's easy to fix then.
So you got to find a way to put the ego aside and get real about it.
Right.
So
and the only way we ever found to do that was make them think they were about to die. We wouldn't do it, but they would. It wouldn't take them long to get there. In 3 feet of water, it's sort of like stand up.
Yeah, that's funny.
and that whole bit. The absolute worst, and this is a little bit racist, but not a lot. And I have numbers to show it. The absolute worst are Hispanic police officers.
Okay.
Most of them didn't swim. Mm-hmm. Most of them are scared to death of water, and they will never admit they're afraid of anything.
Oh, that's for the machismo, huh? That's funny.
Cultural hold there.
And it would take sometimes 2 full nights of pool sessions before all of a sudden they'd be like, okay, I just can't do that. I'm scared to death. It's like, okay, so let's try something a little bit different. And in about 2 or 3 minutes, they're not scared anymore and everything's going well and they catch up. but it's sort of like, you got to get them past the bit of, I'm going to tough it out regardless, because that's not the idea. The idea is to be comfortable with what you're doing, have your skill sets to the point where it doesn't bother you.
Well, and I'm going to tough it out regardless doesn't really work when you're on a swim and you're out in the nature.
The ocean wins.
Yeah,
it's really simple.
Yeah.
It has a long time to beat you, and it'll beat you if you don't let it. And it's the same thing about being injured. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can tough out an injury for a little while, but if it's a real injury,
I know.
Yeah. You have a lot longer to wait.
Yeah. And I found that out the hard way.
Yeah.
Several times, and I'm impatient. I mean, I really think an Achilles tendon should heal in about 3 hours, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 5 hours.
Yes.
And it's like, no, this 2 year shit you told me not going to happen. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, and you also worked with people who had really advanced limitations in their abilities.
Oh yeah, I mean, basically we would teach the same class to people that, basically were missing an arm and a leg or something like that, because our standards were such that there were certain things we had to be able to accomplish. Wow. And so we would try to do that so that they could be independent with their scuba diving before we would go to a handicap. If it was something that just couldn't happen, then we'd go to handicap. If you're blind, you can't really scuba dive because you can't see your buddies.
Yeah, and there's really nothing to look at down there.
But if you have a sense of humor and you can find different ways.
If you're blind, you're going to hear things that other people don't. You're going to hear all the fish sounds. You're going to hear the water rushing past the reefs and everything. Oh. And if you're in the water long enough, you actually get to where you're hearing that anyway.
That's cool.
You're going to feel the pressure waves because the water, for instance, somebody or something's coming up behind you, you feel the pressure waves from them long before they get there.
Wow, that's cool.
And you have to be totally comfortable to do that.
Man, the one time I got in the middle of the Pacific, I did one of those swimming with the shark deals. Where you're in the cage in Hawaii.
I bet you did.
And
drop me in. Let's see who wins.
I do a lot of offshore fishing, so I'm like on the ocean a lot. But in the ocean, I was like, I am not supposed to be here. I was like trying to look behind me the whole time.
We used to run trips where we went looking for sharks, and we didn't do shark cages. We would just go dive with them, and it's really simple. Just don't act like food.
Right. I was like, it was the most like, I feel like I prey. I feel like prey.
Well, and if you act like food, you will be.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a healthy sense of fear, though. And then sometimes on the difficult level, you would get people that would break the rules around sharks, right? Because there's always some dude that wants to prove that he's better than the shark.
Or something.
They want to grab a shark or they want to hit a shark, and it's like, don't do that.
Don't do that.
And usually afterwards the lecture is, you now know. So if you go up and you sort of poke a shark in the side and he bites you, I'm just going to say, well, I hope he had a good lunch.
Right.
We'll try to rescue you, but.
And one of the things that I like that both of you have in common is that you work with pretty much all ages, right? Mm-hmm. So what age do kids start out at your gym?
So the youngest ones we have in there are 3.
Okay, wow.
And that's pretty young. So we those 3-year-olds we're usually doing one-on-one lessons with. Mm-hmm. Trying to wrangle 3-year-olds in a group class is super tough.
Yeah.
But so we have, the little guys, the medium-sized guys, the teenagers, the adults, and then our oldest guys we train are in their 80s. So
wow, it's wonderful. And you have a huge commitment in your gym to make sure that people don't get hurt.
100%.
No matter what age, no matter what ability level they're coming in with. And I really thank you for that, because I see some of these health modalities come out, fitness, platforms, if you will, and they're just sort of job security for surgeons, it's a really tough thing. It's like, well, how did you get out of that without getting hurt? They don't have that same commitment.
So what's the most important thing to not get hurt in the stuff you do?
Well, I think in general, sports at the highest level are not healthy. So your top professional athletes in the spirit of wellness, end up with an out of balance life. Mm-hmm. And so our approach is really, we talk about 7 different areas, right? So somebody's spiritual life, their family, their friends, their education, their mental health, their physical health, financial health, all those things. And we really have just that full encompassing approach and try to steer people if they want to be a big time competitor, like, okay, but don't forget about these other areas of your life. And,
Nice.
So I think just keeping the big picture of life in the frame is a good way to help get people checked. Because in an intense situation like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or MMA or kickboxing, you can get that adrenaline kicks in, that fight or flight kicks in. And so trying to get people just be cool, be calm. Like, we're all friends here. We all got to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah. There's life on the mat and there's life off the mat. Let's do both,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
and so,
yeah.
And really just keeping people safe is one of the reasons we've been successful. We made it palatable where somebody can come in and not go to work with a black eye or a bloody nose or something like that. And people helping people is part of our culture,
That's really good. I mean, when kids came into scuba, what did you do when their parents said, well, you better get this kid to scuba because I paid for this trip, and they didn't necessarily want to?
Yeah, well, there were two different scenarios. Number one, kids below 8 years old should not learn to scuba dive because their lung tissue hasn't hardened. And so they can embolize very easy with pressure changes.
Yeah.
And, they can skin dive, but if you're doing compressed scuba, you do get some pressure differentials in your lungs, and it can rupture a lung, which is a really bad thing.
Yeah.
And so we just flat wouldn't teach them. Now, some of the agencies started teaching them when they were a little bit young for that and that whole bit. And we would get people that would come in and say, well, how much it costs? I don't care what it costs because I really want my kid to learn scuba dive. And I would end up talking with the people most of the time if I was in that store. And it would be like, look, I'm trying to keep your kids safe. We can teach them a lot of skills with skin diving, but scuba diving is very dangerous for someone who that age. And they're like, well, they're very mature. They're this and this and this. And finally, I just started saying, did you drive over here? And they're like, yeah. Like, could I have your car keys for a second? And I'd hand them the kid. And I'm like, would you go to the store and get us something to eat?
Yeah. That's funny.
And they'd be like, well, no, he can't drive. He can't do that. I'm like, you said he was very mature.
So mature.
And I mean, because they weren't hearing the fact that
they're not developed.
I don't want to kill your kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that whole bit. But the minute you put it like drive a car, it's like, oh my gosh, no. And then they would start talking more about, so it's just sort of like that. I'm like, yeah, because when you're scuba diving, you dive with a buddy, and your buddy is supposed to be the person who can take care of you if you get into trouble. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, an 8-year-old can't.
That's fair.
I mean, it has nothing to
Not
do
at
with
that level, no.
Yeah, with anything good, bad, or indifferent. They just physically can't do it and mentally can't do it. And, so it's like, why put them in that situation when you can just sort of keep them safe and give them something fun to do otherwise? Yeah. And so we used to do that. And then the other thing is that, there's certain people who would buy classes for their entire family because they're going to go on a family vacation.
Sure, that makes sense.
And usually it was a teenage female who didn't want to do it.
Wait, I'm getting ready to roll into those years. You think that's going to happen to me too?
Could. and normally it was the dad who's been the rule the roost type dad.
Yeah.
It's like, you'll do what I tell you or else.
Yeah, that doesn't go well.
And, and it would, you would see it in the first night's classroom stuff. And, because the dad is taking over, or sometimes the mom, but I've only once seen moms do it. But dads, they're like, no, this is the way it's going to be. I paid for this class. You're going to take the class. We're all going to go on this trip. Yeah. I know you don't want to go. It doesn't really matter, the whole bit. And if you're going to live with me, you're going to. And so what we would always do, because it's supposedly a fun lifetime sport, is I would always go to the pool. And, if there were, I'd usually have another instructor there that's teaching the class. And I'd go to the pool. And I'm like, okay, so everybody's underwater. They can't hear what you're saying. So come here and sit on the side with me. Do you really want to not do this? Because if you don't want to do this, I will tell your parents that you can't do it.
Cool.
Take it completely out of your hands. I'll basically say, seems to be something weird sinus-wise, and I don't think taking it to a doctor is going to help or anything else, because this just happens sometimes. People just can't clear their sinuses. And the neat thing is sinuses can suddenly decide to clear.
Oh, how funny.
And I said, but it's really fun, and so, happy to do that. Or if you'd like to try it, then, happy to sort of say, let's go down at this end of the pool and I'll take you through the class sort of independently.
Get away from your crazy family.
Away from your parents.
The pressure.
Actually, you'll learn a lot more.
Yeah.
And so you'll be better than them. But that's a different story. And about half the time, they'd be convinced, okay, but I can't swim underwater and he's going to just do this or that. If I don't make the underwater swim, I'm like, I can get you to swim underwater quite easily. A little hypnosis goes a long way,
Nice.
and it really does. I mean, anybody can swim the distance that you need to swim underwater. It's just that most people don't think they can. And so, and we would get that done. And then all of a sudden they start having fun and, they're like, I just don't want to be around them. I'm like, we can work that. We're really good at this. Or if they decided they just didn't want it, I'd get the parents to come up. I'm like, okay, look, we need to have a discussion because she's in pain every time she tries to do some of this stuff, which probably says that she has some sinus problems and it's probably not something you can take her to the doctor and get fixed. And, she just shouldn't do this. It's just going to make it worse. I'll lie like you wouldn't believe if it's for the good of somebody that's, growing up or whatever.
If you just don't want to do it, there's no buy-in,
And, and it's just going to be bad and the whole bit.
Wow.
Well, so what do you do when you have an asshole customer that no one wants to work with and they insist on being assholes? Yeah.
I mean,
you gotta get the good tips.
I mean, I presume you have some retail stuff, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and that means I presume every now and then you have an unreasonable customer.
We get a few every now and again.
Yeah, this whole bit of the customer's always right. No. Sometimes you let them be right when they aren't. But we had, a reasonable number of those, and it would just ruin the staff for a week or two.
Yes.
They just grumble about it and everything. And so I had our computer system people put in something called an AT key.
Okay.
And any one of the staff could push the AT key on the customer. And after 3, he would get a message explaining that we were adding a 10% asshole tax to his
That's hysterical.
purchases.
AT, that's funny.
And it would explain it to him. And, because it just takes us a lot more time to deal with him than other people. And we just don't want to charge the other people for the time we're spending with him. I mean, that's what the whole thing said. And so any future purchases would be a plus 10%. And if he gets another AT, then it would be a plus 15, 30. It could go on up to 100%. And the way it worked was 3 different people had to hit the AT key on someone. And if 3 people decided that they were being an asshole customer, we were like, yep, I'll buy that. And it was hilarious because it made the staff so happy to sit there. You could just see them and they're being berated and all sorts of stuff. And they just sort of reach over and go,
Ding.
and then they'd be smiling and happy again. and he didn't know what happened or anything else, but it's like, okay, that's one of 3.
Wow.
But
and then when they found out, they paid it.
well, and they found out they would, pay it, but then they would start discussing what they could do differently in the way they interact with us to get that taken
That's
off.
cool.
And I'm like, okay, what you really have to do is do it, and then I will ask the staff, and if they decide it's okay to take it off, I will, because this is the staff's stuff, not mine.
Yes.
I just made it available.
I love that. I've got a good story about that. So we, a few years ago, got a jar. If you imagine, you ever seen those deals where, like, guess how many jelly beans are in the jar?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I filled up a jar full of peanut M&Ms, and it was like, how many M&Ms are there? We all guessed, 400. Yeah. Okay, cool. There's 400 M&Ms. The exact same jar with regular M&Ms, not the peanut M&Ms. How many are in this one? 600. Okay, well, what's the difference between the two? Well, there's no nuts in the smaller jar.
Nice.
Right? So, exactly.
Yes.
If you have 400 customers that are little nuts, or you get 600 that are not nuts, you can have more
quality.
with the same number of people. You know what I mean?
Same amount of work.
Same amount of work. So I feel you on that. We shift to that same direction. Most of our folks that are, some people will come into a sports setting. If you picture the crazy baseball mom or dad that's crazy competitive,
super hyped. Yeah.
So when we get those people, we usually have a couple conversations like, hey, this is not that.
Not that culture.
This is not the culture. If you want that, there's a place down the street.
Sure,
and
go
I'm
over
authentically recommending, not
for sure.
kicking you out here, but you're going to be happier there. And they want that. And so Like, if you want to be all super competitive, I'll give you a name of a couple places. But if you're going to be here, you got to chill out and get with the program.
I love that. I love pointing people to where they'll just feel better. And people look at you insane when you do that. Like, well, how could you turn away business? Or what do you mean? And like, no, I'm not everyone's match. And everyone is not my customer. I'm a massage therapist. I touch people. So I use my body to support their body. We're not always going to be a match. I have referrals for a reason, and I am for quality over quantity any day, because you'll get those people that just really you work super well with. They fill you up. You're there for their life. Like you can meet their whole family. And I have some clients that I've been seeing for 12 years now. So, I mean, that's a great relationship. But if you have a different type of scenario where it's just not a match, no one's happy, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking a wellness modality and driving it to the ground. Like, nobody has time for that in this world.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, especially when you're there for wellness.
Yeah. I try to keep the decompressing things like,
Well,
ease and fun and feeling good.
Yeah, because one of the big things is it's like they have to get what they need to get out of it, not what they necessarily want to get out of it.
Yeah.
And, because a lot of times we've got people, well, I want to go dive with sharks. And it's like, have you ever seen a shark close up?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, we can easily take you diving with sharks, but you may not like it. It may not be as exciting as you thought it was, because the key to diving with sharks is to be really calm.
Yeah.
You don't want to get excited.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that we spent a lot of time on. The other thing that we did that was really different, and that is, if you're taking a class, an entry-level class, we would work with you until you were competent to go dive.
Yeah.
As long as you wanted to keep working, we had continuous classes. So we would just roll you into another class, because we had people that would come in that literally had done nothing but go to work, go home, eat a frozen dinner, lay on their couch, go to sleep on their couch, get up, take a shower, go to work for like 20 years.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into any cycle you can create for yourself.
And people like that, it's going to take a while before they can swim for a while. I mean, it's just going to take them a while.
Sure.
And
waking
usually,
up a lot of muscle fatigue and getting a whole different structure.
Oh, and buoyancy is really important in the water and controlling it. And people like that tend to be like a ball. They roll around all over the place, and it takes them a while to get to where they're coordinated. And it's funny because they become very loyal. Once things start to work for them, they're like, I had no idea I could feel like this. And it's like, yeah, it's just called move something.
Yeah, and sometimes people get so bulked that they forget to stretch. And she'll go through the exercises of what you need to do. And when you have a tank on your back, you have to turn around and have a release valve. So you're basically reaching under in like a wiping motion, if you will. And they're like, well, I can't really reach.
Diving. But you need to be able to reach back here.
Yeah.
Well, you get people that this is their whole range of motion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're big,
their arm above their head.
They're like, and it's like, so you've done a lot of weightlifting, right? And they're like, yeah. I said, you stretch? Well, no.
No.
Yeah.
and they would actually knock themselves out in the water.
Really?
Because they tense up and boom, they're out cold. And it's like, okay, another rescue time.
You could be really good at one thing and eliminate be really great at muscle building, but eliminate stretching, and like you have to have balance.
Well, it's the sports at the highest level.
Yeah.
If you're got the most muscles ever, there's deficiency somewhere.
Professional athletes we always used to laugh at, because there is one thing scuba diving, one set of muscles that very few people use if they're professional athletes, and that is you have to actually put some pressure on the exhale. And, boxers actually practice that. But everybody else, exhale just happens.
Sure.
Well, we get like pro football players that were active. And they come in, take a class, and by the end of the class, they're like, I got to go see the doc. Something's wrong with me. I am so wiped out. It's like, no, chill. Let me explain what happened. You're using a muscle you've never used, and your body's not used to that.
Wow.
And, the other thing is they sink like a rock because fat floats.
Right.
Everything else
They're so
sinks.
lean. Yeah.
and it's like, you have what, like 3% fat? No,
Right.
You're going to swim a lot.
That's funny.
But it's sort of like, you just have to be ready for all the different things.
Wow.
So if somebody were going to start out at your gym, what are some of the benefits they could get within like a month or two's commitment?
A month or two, it depends on what they sign up for and what their age is and all that stuff, right? But a month or two is sort of just like an intro. Like, do you think, is this something you want to have as a practice for a decade, right? And so I think that first month, the first 2 weeks, you're just trying to survive the warm-ups.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
Because it's all sport-specific stuff that nobody's ever done. I mean, especially adults come in, and when's the last time an adult did a bear crawl? Or a somersault, or something like that.
They might not even touch their toes. Yeah,
exactly. So really meeting people where they're at, getting them through the warm-ups, teaching them some techniques. Sort of the metric I used for my kids was like, hey, my job as a dad is to teach you guys how to throw a ball, catch a ball, kick a ball, run fast, and fight just a little bit, Yeah. And so I think about 3 years of training by the time they leave the nest. So it could be 3 months this summer, 2 months next summer, whatever. Gives them the life skill that if they're ever in a sticky situation, they'll be able to defend themselves. Because it's a semi-perishable skill, but like riding a bike, you can jump on a bike 20 years later and still know it. If you learn some form of self-defense, years later, if you trained it enough, it'll still mostly be there, which is pretty cool.
That's good to know. And you mentioned that your oldest student is 80 years old. What can you... what's the window of opportunity when you're 80? A lot of people, I mean, there's the senior Olympics that we kind of ignore for some reason. People can achieve things throughout their whole life, but I think there's a certain point when you don't do those things, you think, oh, I'm too old. I can't do this.
I really love the older clients or the handicapped clients or people that you have to really think outside the box with and create something that's going to work for them, like probably in scuba as well. I mean, what if somebody has a cane? Well, they can't be bobbing and weaving, dodging punches. So you got to have a plan.
Sure.
And it could be just safety in numbers. Don't do that, situational things or, some weapons or just sort of layering their self-defense plan. But the reality is, even though Houston is a pretty big city with a decent amount of crime, most people live a lot of their life without getting into some sort of physical situation.
That's good to remind people.
It's not a 911. Like
right.
Everybody, isn't. We're not in a war zone.
There's a good amount of crime, but it doesn't hit everyone.
So mostly it's like, hey, if you're 80 years old and you want to get out of the house and you want to come break a sweat and have some fun with some younger people, because it's really important the older we get to befriend people 20 years younger than us to keep us young.
Yes.
And that's really the big benefit I see of those guys coming in and they have some fun. They break a sweat. They huff. They tell some old stories and then they feel good about themselves. They feel a little more confident because I imagine I haven't gotten older yet, but I know that as that comes,
you will.
I know. You think it's going to happen to me too?
Hopefully,
hopefully, right?
Hopefully, we all have that gift. Yeah.
But I mean, I can't run as fast as I used to. I can't. So as those skills diminish a little bit, I think you do want to have some level of security. If you ever.
No, it's really great. I appreciate you expanding on that because I taught a silver sneakers class for years with the YMCA and for yoga, and I use a lot of my massage skills to help them increase balance, to help them be able to just do a floor class and not be afraid of the floor. Because sometimes when we're not getting close to the floor, you get really afraid of it. And as we age, we lose balance. So it's almost predictable that if you are in your 70s or above, that you're either dealing with balance issues or have already fallen.
Yes.
So when a new student would come to class, I would say, have you fallen? And that's really confronting if you don't want to share with somebody. But I said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? So sometimes we all lose our balance, but especially at that age where the signals may not be going to our feet as much. We may not even think about picking up our feet as much. And we may not be able to clear the floor as much for our walking areas, right? And if you can teach people how to increase their balance while standing and how to get up from the floor independently after assessing if they're injured when they fall, they can keep their independence a lot longer. I mean, that is very valuable. And so that kept them coming to class, and we would all redo what I would call the beginner senior class when they would show up, is how to feel confident in walking long before you get to the floor. Use the chairs to stable yourself to go down to the floor. And then once you get to the floor, we're all going to have a little bit of a different way. We all have different wear and tear on how to get back up. Mm-hmm. So if they never came to another class, they would know that for themselves.
That's cool.
And then I would have some people that were like, okay, I'm in I'm coming back. I didn't care about yoga, but now I need these practical things. Or I would have some people say, they live their life, and they come back 6 months because it's available in their life, and they swing by and they say, yeah, I did fall and I got back up by myself.
That's cool.
It's a good thing because I was in a Marshall's parking lot,
Oh, jeez.
or it was a good thing because I forgot my cell phone, or something. And I think those things are priceless. They're not,
Yes.
ageless, but it does affect people more as we age. But the thing that I saw across the board, whether people were coming in 50s and up, my oldest student was 92, and what I saw is they gained range of motion, they gained balance, they gained the ability to breathe better because they didn't know they weren't breathing completely, and to be able to be in that community consistently was something that nobody wanted to say that they wanted, but they definitely gained solidarity and accountability. And next thing you know, they get different clothes, or they get the mat, or
Yes.
they bring me a friend, or they're like, okay, I still don't want to be here, but I'm still coming, and I don't, in some of these gyms it's like, well, you go to yoga or you go to the dance class, and they're like, I really just didn't want to go to the dance class, but I don't care about yoga.
Funny.
So we would just laugh it off and talk, and and it would be able to help them stay in the car longer to travel, very practical stuff.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they'd get their their people around them to do it so they could travel with them. And they're like, okay, well, we don't have to stop as often for pee breaks. I'm like, no, still stop for pee breaks and stretch there.
Yes.
Make it real practical for everybody.
Yes.
I'll meet a lot of people and they're like, I could really care two shits about yoga. And I'm like, great, use the stretches to make what you love, last longer, because we all have to stretch at some point.
Yes.
So I just really appreciate what you do. And
On that note, I almost fell last night.
okay.
So at 1 a.m, we have pet chickens.
Okay.
I heard the chickens squawking. Okay, we have two chickens in the backyard.
They don't usually squawk at that
They
hour.
don't squawk, and we haven't had anything really mess with the chickens except for some cats every now and again. Anyway, I look out there. One of them's in the yard. Looks like it's been mangled. I go out in the yard and I hear this rummaging in the bushes. I run back in, grab a flashlight, and chase this raccoon off.
Whoa,
right?
okay.
And so I'm like, dang it, my adrenaline's pumping. I'm like, damn it. The protector in me comes
Yeah,
out. Somebody's
yeah.
messing with my
That's all it
chickens. We
takes
love
is a
our chickens,
raccoon.
And so anyway, I'm laying in bed and finally my wife wakes up. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, they're messing with the coons are messing with the chickens,
Yeah.
And she's like, what? Who's messing with our chicken?
Oh, now she's up.
And so
Yeah.
she's like, give me the play-by-play. And I tell her the whole thing. And then it's like 1:32. I was like, and I'm wired, she's wired, the chickens are wired, and so
Everyone's up.
the chickens finally get back on top of their coop because it's hot outside. They don't like going in their coop. Anyway, so I'm like, don't worry, I don't think the coon's coming back tonight. And he had pulled out some of their eggs and eat some of their eggs. And so about 2, she goes back. She goes, he's back. And so I'm like, okay. And so I run out there and I'm in my underwear, no shoes on, and
I got this.
I grab something and I go running out the door, and there's not one raccoon, there's 3 of them now.
Whoa.
He went and got his buddies.
Nice.
And he's like, jackpot
Nice.
over here, guys.
Yeah,
so
double
anyway,
down.
I run outstairs, shut side with a flashlight and throw something at the raccoon and almost twist my ankle, almost
my
wreck
God.
my knee, almost wreck my hip.
Oh
and
my
I'm like,
God.
okay, this is 45.
Everyone,
when I was 25,
everyone needs to calm
I
down.
I probably would have caught him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, my wife and I have been brainstorming ways to trap these raccoons and relocate them to
Nice.
somebody else.
Nice. Everyone thinks it's going to be robbers, but it's like raccoons. They
Right,
come in
they
with
take
it.
you out.
Yeah. And, my mom is, probably 64 or something. She's had a major back surgery, and she called me the other day, and she went to go something to the equivalent of maybe stick her foot into the trash to stomp the trash down, right?
Okay, yeah.
So she's got all the time in the world right now. She's doing little to nothing. She pulls the weeds outside, but she picks up her leg probably higher than she's used to, and all of a sudden she falls out, and she biffed it. She's got some rug burn. She calls me and she's like, I'm so upset. And I was like, okay, are you calling me from the floor?
Right.
No. Okay, that's
to triage this whole thing
that's
first.
Victory number 1, right? And well, my elbow hurts. I'm like, okay, is anything broken? No. I just have rug burn. I'm like, okay. So some generations would say that no blood, this doesn't count. Just saying.
Sure.
And then, that was totally her generation. It's just like, I hate you, right? And she goes, I used to be able to fall and get back up. And how many times have I just like, scuffed myself and kept going? And she was on a lot of sports. She grew up at the YMCA with her brother and her sister. She coached teams and things. And so like to feel that moment of like, dang, the wind got knocked out of me and I can't just get back up is like, it's humbling.
It sucks, trust me.
Yeah, the brain has to make sense of it. She's sore a couple days later, but I was like, you got to keep going. You got to rub some dirt in it. Like, or don't. Just clean yourself and move on. Like, But we all get there. But I think the thing is to share that doing a little bit as you can, whatever your little bit is, might be walking to the mailbox, might be belly dancing, might be, like you said, lawn mowing the lawn, whatever your activity is that you can do consistently can counter a lot of that stiffness, can counter a lot of that, just isolation where we don't do any movement that we all kind of get into sometimes. So just keep
helped
doing
me with
it.
something. You were helping me. I had some sort of ailment probably 10 years ago, and you were like talking to me about my feet. You were like, "Hey, your feet. You need to." Then you showed me a couple of stretches. Even last night, I was like doing one of the stretches, and I was like, "Robin showed me this like 10 years ago."
So anyone can do this. I was shown by a physical therapist, but like get your keys, whatever your keys are for your house, your car, like something that's like not super heavy or bulky, and sit down at first, throw them on the floor, and then like little monkey toes, like grip them with your feet, and then bring your foot up to your hand and get your keys. A lot of people can't do that movement at first. So if you can't grip it, keep gripping, keep gripping, keep gripping. That gets circulation in your toes. That gets mobility in your toes. If you can't make it to your hand, keep going. Don't injure yourself, but keep going. That's the same movement that some people need to put on their shoes. And so if we've been flip-flopping it around in Texas, we could do that all year, actually. By the time someone gets to actually have to tie their shoes, they may not have like reached down. We lose that function.
Wow.
Now there's a brand out there that's like, no tie your shoes, just step into it. Like that's very practical for people, but you don't want to lose that motion. So if you're on the floor with your keys and you're sitting in a couch and you take your ankle up to your hand, that's one movement. But that's a lot of range of motion from your toes to your knee to your hip.
Cool.
Now, if you can do that standing, I would recommend doing it standing while holding onto something stable first, because again, that's a lot of muscles and balance, and you don't just jump right into these things, because I get a lot of requests for people wanting me to teach them how to stand on one foot with yoga. Okay. What they're really asking me is how can I stand and put on my underwear, my pants, and my sock?
Oh, okay.
Okay. So they'll pick the pose that assimilates the thing that they're not able to do anymore as a person for whatever reason. Could be wear and tear, could be stiffness. And I'm like, okay, so if you're in a studio and you're warming up to a tree pose and you're bringing your foot up your shin, your thigh, you're warming up. Even practiced practitioners who teach this 4 times a day are going to have different balance per class. Now, as a student, you don't see that. You're kind of upset about hearing the truth. You got to go slow. So if you can use a wall or a chair that doesn't have wheels, then you have a stability partner. And then you can start to condition that body memory to standing up taller, to engaging all those muscles. And next thing you know, you can put on your clothes. But I will tell everybody, sit down and put on your clothes, because nothing is worth an injury.
Yeah.
Like people think in their mind that if you could just walk and go, throw on the undies, throw on the jeans, whatever, you're going to get there faster. Well, guess what? If you fall, you're not.
That's fair.
So sit down, put them on, maybe 2 legs at a time, impress yourself, and then get up and go.
when you're doing your gym stuff, if people have joint replacements and those sorts of things, what kind of things do you do to make sure that you take care of those?
That is, even any type of surgery. I think the main thing is teaching people to be their own advocate and communicating what's going on with them. Where I've seen people get in trouble is they'll come in and won't tell somebody, hey, my leg hurts, my arm hurts, my back hurts, my neck hurts. And the other guy they're wrestling with, grabs him by the head and gets their neck flared up. But if right before they start wrestling and say, hey man, my neck's kind of bunged up. Can we take it easy on my neck? Yeah, no problem, you know? And so I think the main thing is just communication. You know, if you do have an injury and you're doing any type of sporting event, let your coaches know, let your teammates know, training partners know, and then create a plan around it. And the cool thing about martial arts is it's so multifaceted. There's so much you can do. Even if you're missing an arm, you can still figure out a way to make something work for you. You know, we've had people come in. One guy had no legs. His nickname was Legs. I thought that was kind of funny.
All right.
He had no legs. And dude, I mean, he would ride on a skateboard on his hands.
Cool.
Show up to class, run. He could jog on the mat with everybody.
Right on.
And it was really cool to see him adapt and be able to defend himself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, what if someone's had like knee replacements?
You know, the knee replacements, usually the guys that have had the knee, we see a lot of hip replacements, like a traditional martial art, like a karate or taekwondo. You've probably seen like the Steven Seagal or not Van Damme thing, you know, where he's doing the splits and like that type of where they were forcing people down like in the 80s and 90s causes some serious damage, right?
Yeah.
And almost anybody I know over the age of 50 that's been doing those type of martial arts has had a hip replacement. And so I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah.
Most of those guys like report like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better than I have for the last 5 years.
Because
I've really been...
Didn't know how much pain they were
I've been
actually...
in pain.
Yeah. If you're bracing for a lot of pain, like see if you can find a professional and see if you actually have to be doing that.
Yeah, when I had both of my knees replaced, you know, it wasn't fun having them replaced, don't get me wrong, but so much better afterwards.
So
the only
much
thing that I had a problem with was that at least one of the two doctors, I did different doctors, basically didn't want me to get a range of motion more than 90 degrees. And I'm like, that's not okay. And said, well, but at your age, that's really good. And I'm like, no, it's not. Forget the age shit. That's not enough range of motion. And so we sort of blew that part off.
I think that's really important to highlight because any age, physical therapy, they're wonderful professionals, but they're going to go for average range of motion based upon your age. And if you are not an average person or you want to live above that average, if you want to be more flexible, you can advocate for yourself and think with them outside the box on how to get there. So one of the things that Alexis did was they looked at the ability levels per age group. And she's like, okay, I'm definitely not interested.
I'm not a 20-something. 25 was one of their levels. I'm like, no, that's not it.
That's not it.
But my age isn't it either. So let's go down and find one that works so that you all can be trained to that.
And that's important because some of those average degrees that they're okay with, when you go home and you stop doing the physical therapy and maybe you don't get fit, maybe you're not doing much and you get more and more stiff, you lose the average that you had. So now you're below average and you have to bust that up on your own.
Yeah.
And so when physical therapy is done, that's not when the workout's done. That's just when the insurance
Dude, in the baby boomer
out.
generation, I got to call them out for a second.
Sure.
They are the worst at spending money on themselves.
Yes.
They're like, if insurance ain't paying for it, I'm not doing it. You know, even with my parents as they're aging, you know, I'm like, go get a massage. Does insurance cover it? No. But what else?
And see, they can't see me raising my hand saying, yeah, let's like that would be me.
Right.
Yeah.
But like your body is this vehicle that can take you to do the rest of your life, no matter how many years you got left. And it's the best thing you can invest in.
Sure,
you know?
It really is. And there are endless benefits to massage when you connect with the practitioner and the right modality for yourself. And that is the same for physical therapy. That is the same for a lot of health assistance. And some of it can be cost prohibitive, but you know, find practitioners that you can work with, find places where you could pay for cash, find some reasonable online support, because now a lot of that stuff is shared. And one of the things that I remember with you, when you were doing a lot of high kicks, your glutes get locked up back to the hips being really tight, you know, and we looked at that and it's like, okay, you know, I can loosen these muscles up, but you're going to go back and tighten them up. So what you need to do when you're not on the table is or on the mat is walk backwards.
Yeah. I still do it.
You were going and spending a pretty good amount of money to do spinal decompression in Austin.
Yeah.
And you reported back to me that you were like, hey, so since I do an awful lot of high kicks, I was not just walking backwards, I was stabilizing myself on a staircase, lifting my hip, going backwards on the staircase, opening up those hip muscles.
Yeah.
And that leveled up to the point where you didn't have to go get those spinal decompressions anymore.
Yeah.
It was, you could do it at any hour and it was for free.
Yeah.
And so I continued to tell my clients, like, start, if you're having back pain, hip pain, you're getting tight, pick 10 steps where you're not going to trip, gently walk backwards. And then if you have a staircase where you can, stabilize yourself, gently walk backwards. And what it does is it starts to make those back body muscles work a little bit harder, work a little bit more together. And we're such forward body movement people that we need to balance it out a little bit. And that can bring a lot of lower back hip pain relief that people are looking for. And if you're somebody who's in a chair most of the time, it's kind of funny because we compress those butt muscles so much. They're just like literally sat on. We don't use them. So you have muscle fatigue. So you need to actually like squeeze the butt muscles, lift up, go down. Squeeze the butt muscles, lift up, go down.
Right now.
And that engages.
Aren't we?
Yeah,
I mean,
that
I'm sitting here doing exercise.
yeah, that engages around the tailbone. Yeah, that engages around the tailbone. So it wakes up those muscles, those nerves around there. And a lot of people will report that they just have numbness, like perpetual numbness. Like that's not okay. We have to use those muscles a little bit, but they may not be able to get up from their desk, or they might physically not be able to get up because they have injuries. So squeeze the butt muscles, let them go. Squeeze the butt muscles, let them go. And right now, a lot of people are advocating for people to squeeze all muscles, biceps, forearms, back muscles, squeeze, 10 up, and then let it go. Don't hold your breath, but squeeze, tense up and let it go. That's similar to lifting weights. Not everyone can just go right into lifting weights because they're so fatigued.
Well, yeah, but lifting weights sounds like exercise. I try to avoid weight exercise.
Right. Anything that looks like regular exercise. And I'll end with this like one last one. Like I'll get people who come in and they're like, look, I've tried everything. I'm like that person who has to find the new thing to do.
Okay.
Because they get, they have to master the new thing to do. And they get real bored real quick with anything. And I was like, so you tried it all? And they're like, yeah, I need that next thing. And I was like, you done it all? Yeah. I've been done everything. I'm like, okay, did you try belly dancing? And they're like, what? Are you kidding me? And I'm like, okay, this is serious. Wow. This is very serious. So go to YouTube. Find a beginner's video, not advanced. If it doesn't look, if it looks like she's been doing it for a long time, don't do this.
Yeah, don't try to roll quarters up your abs the first time.
Do not go into this full force. You will hate yourself. You need a true beginner. You're just moving your stomach, abdominals, belly dancing, and I promise you, it's a different level of owning your own body, owning your own movement, and it can fine-tune some of those abdominal muscles and back muscles that you just haven't had access to when you're lifting weights, when you're doing your regular stuff.
I love that.
Game on.
I mean, do you find that, you've done this for a good while, that a lot of times when people are having problems, you just look at them and you know exactly what their problem is. It may not have anything to do with that, but you've seen it so many times.
We could diagnose what's going on pretty quick, and then it's how can I communicate with this person in a way that will have them do what I know will help them. Yeah,
and that's sometimes the problem.
Yeah, and that is usually the challenge. Like you mentioned the backwards walking, right? So there's have you seen the knees over toes guy at all? Mm-hmm. So one of the things I got from him that from what you gave me and combined it with his thing is walking backwards on a treadmill. Mm-hmm. So the treadmill's not on, but you push up against the front bar and push the treadmill backwards, right?
Okay.
So you're getting that walking backwards motion. Stability's fine. I'm not worried about falling.
Nice.
And it strengthens my quads a lot too, which makes my knee tighter. I've got a torn meniscus, so it tightens that up.
For the knee
avoiding
attachments.
That meniscus surgery. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, and then back to the glutes, the strengthening the glutes. And so anybody with a bum back, I'm like, hey, walk backwards on the treadmill, do these 2 or 3 glute exercises.
Nice.
And they're just like, yeah, I think I'm going to do something. And I'm like, hey man, like
don't hurt yourself.
I've suffered through like 2 herniated discs that I can now do jiu-jitsu again in my mid-40s at a high level because I've learned how to rehab that.
Yeah.
And I promise you, if you'll just do these 3 things,
The rest
it will help
time.
you.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay,
Slow.
and they kind of half-ass try it. And I'm like, okay, well, whenever you really want to get better, come back to me and we'll work on this stuff. You know?
Exactly. And some of that is ego because, you shared with me, like when you first got started, you felt like you had to get the deepest tissue, you had to go hard on the mat and then go hard in your wellness. And that is a common thing for people who put a lot of effort into their body, whether it's a fitness thing or whether it's a stress thing. So if you're that high level CEO and you are all about the grind and no
pain, no gain.
Yeah. Like you feel like your wellness has to be just as rough and tough. And it's like, okay, but where's the rest? Where's the recover? Where's the decompression? Right. And that's for people to find out in their own way. But I want to say a cool story about somebody who avoided meniscus surgery. She wanted to go skiing with her family, and the doctor said, you have to strengthen your quads. And she said, okay, well, she grew up in an occupational therapy. Her dad was one of the first occupational therapists in Texas, brothers, sisters, cousins, all of them. She says, well, I'm going to do wall sits.
Okay.
So she's putting her back on the wall and her, thighs are parallel to the floor and she's wall sitting. Then that's not a easy thing to do. You're going to get like seconds, maybe a couple minutes, whatever. And the doctor said, if you can get up to 10 minutes, then you can ski. Because that's basically the position of skiing. You got the little things and you're basically wall sitting on the skis. You're squatting, right? So in order to wall sit and distract herself mentally from the brutal intensity of her thighs and quads like firing, she just folded clothes. She just kept folding more clothes, and she got up to 10 minutes and she could ski and she avoided that surgery.
Maybe I'll do that if my wife and I get into an argument. Be like, hey, why don't we wall sit until we get this squashed?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Just get it done real quick.
Yeah, I saw a funny comic of how to make work meetings go faster, plank while zooming.
Plank while zooming? Yeah, we'll get this wrapped up real quick.
We're just going to, nobody needs to partner share. Let's go. So I want to segue into your love for volunteering. Like what got you into volunteering?
Man, I like work that's transformational. So like people coming in to want to transform their health and fitness and wellness and all that stuff is cool. And I don't know if it was really about volunteering. It was more about just like finding a solution to a problem. And sometimes that's in like a for-profit capacity. Sometimes that's in a non-profit capacity. The main thing that I've been doing for the last, since right about the time we met, 2011-ish, is an organization called Heart Gift that provides life-saving heart surgery to little kids that are born with congenital heart defects. And so on the big picture, there's about 1.4 million kids born a year with a fixable congenital heart defect. And heart surgery has only been a thing here in the world for about the last 75 years or so. And the world has created enough hospitals and surgeons and nurses and doctors and everybody to take care of about 300,000 kids a year globally. So there's still not all those 1.3 need kids, but there's at least another 300,000 to 500,000 kids on the planet that don't get these heart surgical repairs, which if they don't get the repair, it's terminal, right? So I got started in the space. We were bringing kids here to the U.S. for surgery, like here in Houston, Memorial Hermann, and Austin, San Antonio, some other big cities.
We have so many people that come to Texas to get their medical care.
Yes.
What got you into this particular sector?
So my wife's family was involved, and when we met, they were telling me about it. I was like, that sounds cool. So we sponsored a couple kids. We had a fundraiser at the gym. I did a pro fight and donated the purse to that. And then I got invited to go scrub in and watch open heart surgery on a little kid.
Wow.
And dude, it was like humanity at its finest, seeing the care of like 15 people taking care of this one kid between the perfusionist and the anesthesiologist and everybody in that space.
It's a big deal.
I was like, man, I should have done better in school so I could be on this team,
well, it's wonderful. It was moving.
It really was. And I was there. The doctor was like, hey, you want to go with me to tell the mom that their kid's going to make it?
Wow.
And I was like, I think so. I'm not crying. You're crying, And so we had that
Let's
whole...
all cry together.
Yeah, right.
This is worth it.
So after that, I was hooked. I was like, okay, I want to get more involved. Got on the board, did a bunch of other stuff. And and the cool thing is the organization has grown a ton. There's about a dozen nonprofits in this space. But really what's next is like I said, we were bringing kids here kind of one at a time, and then we shifted and started doing kids abroad. When I first got started, we were doing 30, 40 kids a year. This year, we're going to do 625. So that's pretty significant growth. But 625 compared to the 500,000 that still need help.
I can see your eyes. You're like, I want to help everyone.
Yeah,
you're like the Care Bear of heart giving now.
Yes.
I love it.
And what's really cool is there's so many awesome people in this space, the doctors, but they're all busy. They work a ton. And so it takes somebody that's entrepreneurial to come in and go, hey, let me help organize all this for you guys. And then y'all do it. And so that's been really what I'm working at now, is using AI to create almost like a, LinkedIn for this space, and have like a Facebook marketplace for anybody that needs equipment on there. They can transfer equipment. If somebody needs funding for brick and mortar, we can help connect them to donors. And so anyway, I'm trying to really create the others to others approach rather than us. I think we can empower the whole world to communicate and help each other just with some software, which I think is sort of the next step in this space.
And I love how you're not taking it on just your shoulders. Like some people get so mentally limited when they do that to themselves. They forget that we can outsource this, we can team build, we can extend it, and we don't all have the best answers. So like it sounds like you're putting your ego aside to get to the bigger number, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. It is the only way to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Like, we can't. Yeah, it's massive. It's probably one of the top 3 killers of kids. You've got dehydration, malaria, things like that.
Okay.
And the thing that's frustrating and good about this space is it's fixable. Like this isn't. We don't need proof of concept. Like kid comes in, gets quality care, kid lives. It's very cut and dry. And like I said, everybody I've ever met in this space is super kind and wants to do more. Yeah. And it's really been really cool. It's probably the most, the work we do at Elite MMA is really cool, like helping transform people through self-defense and fitness and all that. So I don't want to say it's equal. It might be, the heart gift thing might be the most important thing I do on my time here on Earth.
Right. So it's heart gift. And if somebody wanted to find out more, is it just
they can go to heartgift.org and learn about it. There's some cool videos on there and that sort of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways for folks to get involved, but yeah, which is really funny for me, because like I mentioned, I wasn't a very good student in school, and so the first time I'm in one of these boardrooms with these serious badass surgeons and like the top,
you're like, who's this dude with a back hat?
Who's this Jiu-Jitsu guy in here, and so
wait a minute, did you stick out, or do you just felt like
I 100% stuck out. Okay. I mean, I put on the nice clothes, I wore the coat and tie to the meeting, but when they would use some big words, I was like, now, do what now? I got to go look that one up.
Yeah, but mental note for later.
Yeah, and so really the first year, I just shut up and listened to these. And I was like late 20s, early 30s. Everybody else was 55, 65, tail end of their careers. And I'm talking serious, badass business professionals, right? And so I just listened for a year and then started raising my hand, saying, hey, what if we try this way? What if we try that way? And then I bugged them enough. They put me in charge of some stuff, and then. Nice. And so it's been really fun, and I've gotten to meet so many cool people. I heard a good quote. A really good friend of mine says, you make a lot of friends in life, but you find your best friends in service of others. And so and I've really found that to be true.
It gives me goosebumps.
Right? And I've met so many cool people that are kindred spirits, and that I really enjoy. I've still got my high school buddies, my college buddies, my work buddies, but these other people, when the phone rings and they're calling, I'm making sure I grab it or call them back quick.
Yeah, you're so in the moment right now. You're so lit up about it, and I love that that's what some missions can really do for people. And I love that you highlight that you actually came in knowing that you could contribute something, but you also listened, and you didn't take yourself out in a group of people that maybe, could have been easy to say, oh, I don't belong here. These guys I don't have the qualifications, or like whatever. Like, you accepted the invite, and you kept showing up, and then you met them where they were at, and they obviously, allowed you in to do something, and now you're like super lit for it. So congratulations, because I think all those things can be mental blockers for people, and then they just don't try, but they want to.
Yeah, and an awful lot of people, when you're talking about, being a member of a board or whatever, they don't think they fit in. Well, a reasonable board doesn't want people that fit in.
Sure, they want diversity.
They want something that's different because, if you're on a board that I'm running or something, I don't need another me.
Exactly.
In fact, that would be really bad. But what I want is somebody that's different, but somebody that's not stupid, if you will. And I mean stupid in they're just trying to show how bright they are usually.
Yes, yes.
Someone that knows what they're doing and they're taking things seriously, but also with a sense of humor.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's good. And what would you say is sort of a nice balance in someone's board that would actually have it be efficient? You've been on some boards that were like, herding kittens, and then you've been on some boards that really made some things happen. So, and you've denied a lot of board invitations.
Oh yeah.
So what do you look for in a functional board?
A board that's basically trying to accomplish something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of boards that sit there and someone sort of takes over the board and everybody just lets them do it and nothing gets accomplished.
Yeah.
And then they berate the other board members for not doing their parts. Usually they don't because there's no way the leaders are taking them to it. So I think that's the big thing. It has to be people that want to get things accomplished.
Yeah. I think there's a life cycle too. So like when I first got involved at Heart Gift, it was about 10 years old. And the board meetings look like, hey, where do we want to have the gala this year? Does anybody know anybody that knows this person? It was very like we were sort of solving the problems in the meeting. Mm-hmm. And then over the years, as the organization got bigger, all that stuff got done at the committee level. So there was like a gala committee, a finance committee, a governance committee, a medical committee, and they would have these separate, Zoom calls or meetings where the work would get done and then come back to the meeting and say, okay, now Frost is up to report the missions committee. Okay, this year we're going to Panama, we're going to El Salvador, blah, 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 blah. And so, as an organization gets more organized, those boards can be more fun to be on. And then, one of the things we went through at Heart Gift was that transformation from solving it all in the meeting to these committees at first felt very insufficient and like, what? It's taking forever now. If I want to get this trip approved for Bolivia, I got to run it. Now I got to run it through the finance committee, the mission committee, these 5 committees. And before I could just like have one phone call and it was done.
Problem solution.
Exactly. And me being a small business entrepreneur, like I'm used to calling one or two people and let's roll, you know? And so at first I was super frustrated with that. And then, but now having lived through it, I can really appreciate the the procedures and the handbook that had to be written and all that.
And the biggest thing about it is the committees need to do their job too.
Yes.
Because a lot of times they get split off to the committee, and what you find is that some committees appear to just be there to delay everything.
Right.
They don't do any work, they don't add any value or anything else, in which case you need to get rid of the committee.
100%.
And I think that's what a lot of people miss. And that's what'll kill a board off really fast, because people who want to do things and who are, spending the time to be on a board and actually really do it, they don't really want to be just put off by something that adding no value to what they're doing.
Yes.
Now, if the committees are working well, then there's a lot of stuff you don't have to do that they're taking care of, and you can let it go.
Yes.
But
I got one more tip. So there's an organization here in Houston called the Greater Houston Community Foundation. Okay. So I was introduced to this about 10 years ago or so. For any of your Houston listeners, I describe them as sort of like Houston's philanthropic headquarters. And so I actually took a course there that they trained me in, like, what does it look like to be on a board? What does it look like to look at the financials of a nonprofit?
Nice.
What's going on in Houston? They have this Understanding Houston thing. So you go on site visits, you go to the food shelters, the homeless shelters, the mental health clinic,
That's wonderful.
And so you
runs you through it, gives you options.
You learn who the key players are. Like, if I'm interested in mental health, these are the 5 groups that I should go connect with. And so I think most big cities have community foundations. They're all sort of different sizes, shapes, and colors. But getting plugged into your local community foundation, they usually have events you can go to, a lunch and learn type thing.
That's great.
That's been a super, super cool thing for me. And they helped coach me up as being the young guy in the committee when I was raising my hand saying, I think we should do this. They're like, yeah, Sonny, like, wait, you got 10 more years before we listen to you.
Nobody called on you.
So GHCF helped coach me up so that I could make a bigger difference for the areas that were important to me.
That's great. So if you want to make a difference and you don't know where to start, and you're especially in Houston, check out what?
Greater Houston Community Foundation.
Wonderful.
GHCF. Yeah.
Yes, I recently Googled like how many nonprofits there are in Houston, and I was very, very impressed with the list. And you're right, there are different sectors. So if you're if you're somebody who likes to get competitive and want to do a workout while you're volunteering, there's something for you. And the food bank always ends up doing a lot of really good food packing and leaves people sore and makes it real fun.
Yes.
So you can get a shift there, and they need people like all year round, not just like on Thanksgiving. So and then some people may not know this or may have forgotten, but some jobs pay for hours for certain places that are nonprofit. So they pay for you to volunteer. So there may be some double dipping in that if your job offers that.
Yeah, most of the oil companies do, and some of the other big companies.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Just a quick proviso. If you're getting ready to spend a bunch of time with a nonprofit, make sure that it's legit.
Totally.
How would one do that?
Well, first thing is go to the IRS website and look them up.
Okay.
Look up nonprofits. If they say they're a 501c3, you should be able to find them with no problem. You can also, with the IRS site, find their 990s and look at their financial statements. If that's not there and people say, oh, well, it's just a paperwork, whatever. No, they aren't a nonprofit if IRS doesn't say they are.
Yeah.
It's simple. And that may just be an oh shit type stuff because it does happen. But at that point, you need to take a step back and figure out what's going on. Because you don't want to waste a whole lot of time and lend your name to something that's not going to be there. Then after that, find some people who have, worked with them for more than a year.
That's a great idea.
A lot of times the nonprofits show up, they, do stuff and a year later they're gone. And you never know exactly what happened with what you donated or your time or anything else. I mean, one of the things that I found really interesting is I'm president of Transgender Foundation of America, which is a 501c3 nonprofit and all that type stuff. And I find it interesting because by IRS standards, we're considered a large nonprofit. So we're considered in the same category as United Way and all those people. Well, we're tiny. But,
What puts you in the same category with organizations that
the
are
amount
that
of
big?
money you raise and the things you do.
Okay.
And that sort of stuff. But there's so many nonprofits that raise less than $200 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like more than 50%. And,
Sure.
And, I think about that and I'm like, okay, $200 a year, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so just be careful that you know what you're getting into. And if you're going to be making a donation or something, you shouldn't be a huge percent of their entire expenditure for a year.
Yeah.
You ought to have help with that.
Yeah, that's true. There's different levels. So you can go and give your time. You can go and try to get a position with them. You can go and just donate. And I always like people to know when they donate where their money is going to. Is it going to just the staff, which may be fine depending on the nonprofit. You want to keep it open. Or it may go to a particular program that the nonprofit offers and you might feel a little bit more connected to that. So if you're just getting into it, like check around and who knows? I mean, that might be a new thing for people this summer.
And the biggest problem is if somebody gets involved in a scam nonprofit, that turns them off from doing anything the rest of their life.
Yeah.
The chances of them ever doing anything else is really slim.
One of the things GHCF coached me up in, they call it the 4 T's. So time, talent, treasure, and ties. So, and I found that to be really effective. So there was a new Houston fitness nonprofit that got started. And they asked if I would jump in and help out. I said, sure. Let's go through the list. So time, this is how much time I have, right? This is my talent. This is where I think I can help you. Treasure, like this is what I think I could donate. And then ties. These are the people I know in the community that I think you guys would like to know. And having that communication up front with any organization really sets the ground rules. Like I really only fundraise for one organization, but I help Kickstart Kids, which is a nonprofit that Chuck Norris started to help middle school age kids do karate, right?
Nice.
So I help them more on the like industry specific stuff, on the martial arts stuff.
That makes sense.
And I fundraise for this other group. And I don't feel guilty as a board member saying, hey, I'm not going to fundraise for you guys.
Yeah.
But this is what I can help you with. And I think clarity coming in the door is super important.
And I think that's the big thing too, because a lot of the a lot of the nonprofits have multiple boards, and if they do, you need to figure out whether you're going to have any say in anything. Because if you put your name on that board, you're going to be seen publicly. But if you have no say, that's a little bit risky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So just think about where you're getting into and maybe start with the org that you're suggesting to not get into anything sticky, and just maybe volunteer your time to get to know them first. Like, don't just jump head in, and that way you have a lifelong of opportunity to be able to give maybe to multiple boards or maybe to multiple organizations if you wanted to, and just learn new things. Like, I love people hearing about, like, they go and they volunteer with the zoo. Like, that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
I mean, there's just different things out there for people. So is there anything else that we should cover today while you're here?
Man, we covered the full gamut, right? Yeah. From getting up off the floor to
get in there, wrestling chickens.
Oh, we didn't do all that much.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thanks to you guys for the difference y'all make in the world and in your various communities and areas that y'all are, interested in. It's been super fun being your friend all these years, Robin.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I look forward to many more decades of transforming the world, right?
That sounds good. I mean, the more people are getting into making the world better, the better. Like, I don't know. I'm just lit up for that. Like, I was telling Alexis the other day, I'm constantly having to adjust to the fact that we're human. Like, there's a lot of cons that happen, but I want to highlight the pros. I want to highlight the wins. I want people to be inspired. And for me, the reason why is because that keeps me going, and kindness goes a long way. Being gentle with yourself goes a long way. So if that's what you're doing today, just thank you for keeping going. And if you want to share, subscribe to the podcast, awesome. If you just want to share, and subscribe to any podcast, that helps. Frost, you have one that you started.
Yeah.
How can they find that?
Yeah. So we're on, I think, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. It's called the Elite MMA Coaches Corner, like Corner Man.
Yeah.
And so that's fun. We interview a lot of, we call it teachers, preachers, and coaches, right? So people that have some wisdom and want to share it. So
I loved it. I highly recommend checking in with it because it's just good talk. And if you can have that playing in the background or you can have it inspiring yourself, it's a click play situation. It's just right there and accessible for people. So don't sleep on that podcast and take care of yourself.
And
I
certainly enjoyed it. I'm not sure how long we went, but it was probably more than 10 minutes.
Love it.
Okay. Thank you. We really appreciate having you. We'll probably invite you back for something else because we'll think of something we need some help from.
I'm in. Anytime I can hang out with you guys is a win.